So we're just going to do a quick review on this lesson. I know it's a review, but just to make sure we all understand, we're going to talk about repeated multiplication. Now remember, multiplication is when we're multiplying numbers or variables. Repeated means it's the same. So which one of these are repeated multiplication? Well, 1 and 9 are not the same number, so that's not repeated. It's multiplication, but not repeated. Here we have 1/2, 1/2, 1/2 times each other. So that is repeated multiplication, and we could rewrite that as 1/2 to the third power. Here we have 7 times 7 times 7 times 7. They're all the same, and they're being multiplied, so that is 7 to the fourth. The next one we have 2 times 3 times 4 times 5 times 6. Well, they're multiplying, but they're different numbers. So that one is not repeated multiplication. It's multiplication, but it is not the same number. And finally, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 nines. That is repeated multiplication, so we could rewrite that as 9 to the sixth. Next, we're going to look at this, examine the power of 5 to the third. And we're going to go step by step. So what is the base? Well, the base is this number right here. That's what is going to be repeated multiple times. So the base is going to be 5. The exponent then is how many times we're going to repeat it. So the exponent is 3. What is the power expressed in expanded form? Expanded form means we're going to, instead of write 5 to the third, we're going to write it out as 5 times 5 times 5. Or you could write it 5 times 5 times 5. Just showing the multiplication. And what is the value of the power? Well, when we take 5 to the third power, our value, the value is what is the result here? Our value is 125, because 5 times 5 is 100 times 5 is 125. We're going to look at this now, x to the fifth. We're going to rewrite this in expanded form. So x to the fifth is the same thing as x times x times x times x times x. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. X to the seventh, and we can't evaluate that any further because we don't know what x is. X to the seventh is going to be, oops, gotta learn how not to do that. X times x times x times x, that's 4, 5, 6, 7. And again, we don't know what x is, so we can't evaluate that. 5 to the sixth, we've got 5 times 5 times 5, 5, 5, 5. So did I do that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 5 to the sixth. And then I could pull out my calculator and I could say 5 to the sixth power is equal to, if I were asked the value of that, this is the expanded form. If I were asked the value, it would be 15,625. 6 to the fifth then, because 6 is the base, oops, I keep doing that, is 6 times 6 times 6, 6, 6. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Remember, the base is what's being repeated. The exponent is the number of times. So then again, if I do 6 to the fifth, and if I were asked the value, that would be 7,776. Now I want to take a look at this. We're going to look at all of these. I have some already here, and then I want to look at these as well. And we're going to decide if they are going to be a negative number or a positive number. Now, if you remember, we've got, if the power is positive, or excuse me, even, the power is even, we're going to get a positive number. Because if you take -3 times -3 times -3 times -3, well, negative times a negative is a positive, negative times a negative is a positive, and positive times a positive equals a positive. So anytime you can pair up negatives, you're going to get a positive power, and then your result will be positive. So if the power is positive in all of these, it's going to be, or excuse me, even. If the power is even, it's going to be positive. Now let's look at the negatives. If we have a -10 to the fifth power, so that's an odd number. If we have -10 times -10 times -10 times -10 times -10, well, if I pair up those, that's going to be a positive. If I pair up those, that's going to be a positive, and I'm left with a negative up here. Well, a positive times a positive is a positive, and a positive times a negative is going to equal a negative. So if the power is odd, it's going to be negative. So here's 9 and 3. Those are both going to be negative powers. If it's inside the parentheses. Now, if it's outside of the parentheses, if I have negative 6 to the third, that's still going to be a negative. Those aren't negative ones. They're just negative powers. It's still going to be a negative number. But if I have negative 6 to the fourth, the negative is outside. So we take 6 to the fourth, and then we take the opposite of that. So this would still be a negative number. But if it's inside the parentheses, the power is odd, it's negative. The power is even, it's positive. So let's look at these. We can just very quickly look at this and we can say, well, a negative inside the parentheses to an odd power, negative. A negative inside the parentheses to an even power, positive. Negative inside the parentheses to an even power, positive. Negative inside the parentheses to an odd power, negative. Okay, evaluate this power with a base that is a negative fraction. So here's our base. So this is saying negative 1/4 times a negative 1/4. Well, when we multiply fractions, we multiply the numerators. Oops. I lost my problem. There it is. The numerators, which is negative 1 times negative 1. Now in this case, we're taking the whole thing. Negative times a negative. I know this is going to be a positive because I have a negative times a negative. So 1 times 1 is 1. 4 times 4 is 16. So that's going to be a positive 1/16. I hope that's a good review for you. Just keep in mind within parentheses and without parentheses. And remember, your negatives times negatives equals positives, and negatives times positives equals negatives. So good luck with that.